Bula ni bula Vinaka sama mai. Vinaka valevu na sema tiku mai wiki mnina viwekani ni sema tiku mena kabinaka nikua sao tiku na vitu na tinkando na miniti wiki mnina sema tiku mai viti batake New Zealand vavini vinaka sara nomni sema mena kabinaka nikua singa marau taki na singa nikua ni tiko talega ngondo na nonda vulangi ngoli tiku mena sana Torocake o Kadavu au klani vungo wiki mnio ni sakilatiko ni vulango na vula kusita sana vula seninrala sana vula kawa na rona vula vakaviti keletelikina na vulango na vula kusita ngona vula tiko ke Kadavu vakumbula sarchiko baka bimbi ber kedana bebe kani rasema chikumai en nongo yano Kadavu ber kedana tikumi vanua vakatulu sakachukani na bendel ni abutambu en viwa na tikina en nongo YASANA au nitaka ni na marutaka na betala noa en kabinaka nikua ni sema sarchikumendo na nanda vulangi taukei vulangi ndokai en sinubinaka nikua en may lakutikando na betala noa vital no saranga na biwa sei me bakasa da doda kabati ko na bi moniti and the marau takasara ni sile moko na nona ngoni turanga soso and the marau taka ni wakangalala tiki koya and alomanga ni wasawul kalimina miniti kina ndoni awongo karona vital no tiko kina klana ngono komenta sana wakambula sarwa bulu Vinaka Professor Sitiveni Ratuva.
Ya, belum nak terisi sama keciko.
Sa ceki ng Pulakai Hawaii. Roma dan Indriu chiko may Christchurch.
Oh, Indriu libu. Na snow ingkara Valilia. Itumba.
Kembali ba nga na snow nga luto nga may Kandavu
Ya, na snow nga may Kandavu may Nislan dililengal o may Nislan dilip.
Isa, Vinaka valeu na seva manjina Indriu chiko ng Raki may Christchurch na taon niyo chiko ke keranga ke ronga niyo pamadal tekini ke munga weekend na barong chiko mai ke bakairaw na bono dabutu mai ke mai bici kena nomu korni vas ke raw.
Oh ya, anu kor may Naioti may Yale may Kandavu. Korni vas may Naioti may Yale may Kandavu talega. Sudga may nakoro. Wuli may na primary school may nakoro. Hanggang lang may suba. Lasara University. Sangay tostigo lasar may na ngonaki. Ya talong balabu ya betul nilag-lagan ng uno sa walelati na nga.
Ya bana nangon mantangakan na takaya bo chilit ko may na University of Canterbury.
Director tu ni dona tamban ni Vakadidike na MacMillan Brown Center for Pacific Studies. Do chila kan viva na Vakadidike na ngonibuli korangan ni PhD kena chili doctor. Artule rosna bulumbek veiasai vuravura. May Europe, may Japani, may Amerika, Australia, Pasifika, may Afrika, may Asia, relief sar. So sa min relo mai sartungan na nondon di wanua rangai connect nga. Ya bosor sa ausara bosor Kandavu Mata au min klana bersama.
Don Vinaka saranga, rong Vinaka saranga ni bosar cunga Kandavu.
Ada bosar Kandavu lancar babalai.
Don saranga sahabat ngamir. Di selandi lelenga, di selandi lew, santul sarcingari.
Yang betul madan Kandavu
Mara di Kandavu. Iya. Vinaka paling besar na nomusulit tu menungona ni lebu mendorme vitalano iya na nomusit tu mo mai Professor Steven Santo tungan nomu bananano monalako na tambanya kani vadidike batike na gas ni buli na university sa chikundo no mitubutubo banidi.
Ya na tobole mo wasiata la balang wasona ngonera tumbutuman min klana was Kandavu.
Don
Apa mimpi ran tu suba atau tu Islandi veiasai vuravura na punar tuke.
Andali utala na vasu ndra barong tal chunga mika.
Iya levan na vasu sana mixte na balalai.
Don.
Wa Kandavu wa balang.
Don.
Yeah, thanks for a very good question, Tarisi. I mean, growing up, there are a number of things which I had in mind. One was the circumstances in Fiji then. For the Torocake, we always looked down upon as being not smart enough and not good enough in business and other things. And we were told all the time by the parents, o sa tira tungayan vuli bataken na business kanto na sani Vinaka to the cup. And I wanted to prove that this is not true. In fact, we can be as good, in fact, better than any other ethnic group. Yeah. And when I came to New Zealand, I came across the same thing. A lot of the Pacific Island students and even academics, they look down on themselves because that is the nature, that is kind of perception around here. Kind of stereotype, the racial stereotype that Pacific Islanders are not smart enough. They're dumb. All they do is drink and get, and they're, vulgari and so forth. When I first came to Auckland University, some of the senior Pacific and Maori staff members told me, "Oh, you can't apply for the Marsden because only the Kaivalangis will get it because it's for them. I said, no, I think if you look at it properly, it depends very much on how you do it and how you look at things. And then when I applied for the first time and I won the Marsden Award, and then they started changing their thinking. And then I started running workshops for them, for Pacific and academic staff, particularly in terms of how to be strategic and how to, the tactics of application and making sure that they tick the right box and say the right thing and being able to think the right way. And they started winning as well. And the same thing which happened here when I came down here. The first reaction was when I told them that we are just as good as anyone else, was, oh, how can you do that? Because the Kevalangis, they are smarter than us. And after I started winning all the major awards here, the Research Award at University and the National Award for Social Science in New Zealand, which is the highest in social science, and being made fellow of the Royal Society, which is very rare. Then they asked me, oh, how did you do it? Oh, very simple. All you need to do is take away the perception that you're not good enough, that we are just as good as anyone else, despite your skin color. So I think one of the problems in Fiji is that a lot of us, particularly the Tokais, are still locked into that mode. And then parents actually start, they tell us, they reinforce that. And a lot of us, they still feel that way. And I think it's time that we have to get rid of those kinds of perception and then see ourselves just as smart and just as good as anyone else in terms of achievement at the global level. We have the best in rugby sevens, of course. We can be the best in everything else, including academia. Yeah, the other thing is the idea of making sure that you're very strategic in your choices, strategic in what you do. And often we just follow what we are told by teachers, we're told by our leaders, told by everybody else in the community, when in fact, what we should be doing and say, okay, you analyze what you're told, analyze what you're supposed to do and make strategic choices. Often we choose things, whether the courses or whether the path that we follow in our education, in our career, just because somebody tells us to do it, we do it. When in fact, it's important that we should, step back and look at where we are, what we're doing, and the best way to look forward to address some of those issues that confronted with. The third issue is to do with trying to expand your horizon all the time, because again, one of the challenges which Pacific students and academics and even Pacific people here in New Zealand face is the fact that they're locked into these little boxes about themselves. And often they use models. They call it some fancy Pacific models. And they use it for research. They use it for various, for health, for education, and so forth. And I kept telling them is that, and they call it decolonizing education, when in fact, it's a way of recolonizing, because we use exactly the same models which are used by the European scholars, but just call it a local name. And then I said, let's step back and look at how ancestors lived and how they were able to frame their knowledge. When they're sailing across the wide Pacific Ocean, they were the greatest navigators the world has ever seen. And they were able to populate the Pacific, Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, as far as Easter Island. They went as far as South America and brought back the Kumala to the Pacific. And they use, the horizon was limitless. It was not those files and those boxes with the models, but horizon was huge. And they knew that behind the horizon, there were other horizons. And it kept going and going and going. It's endless. So, and there's so many innovations, so many new ideas that we can learn from the past. I think what we've learned over the years is that we tend to borrow the wrong things from the past, and we use it. For instance, when we talk about some of our traditions, some people say, "Oh, let's rebuild the canoes." I went down to the Canterbury Museum one day, and I was talking with a director, and then he was showing me some of the old traditional canoes in the Pacific. And then he said, we're trying to preserve the Pacific traditional artifacts here from the past. I said, okay, but I saw it differently. I said, for me, that canoe it's not so much preserving the canoe as a cultural artifact. For me, it's being able to understand the kind of innovation that indigenous science we went into making the canoe to transform a piece of wood, a rough piece of wood, into a very highly sophisticated navigational tool in the form of a canoe. To do that, there's a lot of scientific knowledge system at play. One is to do with the sense of balance in order for the canoe to be able to sustain itself in rough seas. And secondly, is being able to have a streamlined effect against the waves. And thirdly, is the sense of symmetry. These are basic geometries, and fourth is the idea of aerodynamics. They were able to create sails which were able to sail into the wind. And the European ships, when Captain Cook came into the Pacific, he was flabbergasted. He said, "Oh my gosh," because his ships were able to sail around his endeavor so many times more. And just Andrua was able to sail at something like 15 to 20 knots, while the Endeavour only sailed as fast as 5 knots. There's a difference about 3 or 4 times. So they were far more sophisticated. So the kind of sails they use was very highly sophisticated in terms of catching the wind at certain angles. So they were able to use aerodynamics, understand the principles of aerodynamics, even before the word aerodynamics was invented by the Europeans. But then a lot of those knowledge is lost. We just preserve the canoe, but not the knowledge. So they say the Japanese and the Chinese have been able to do that pretty well. They preserve some of the indigenous science and let's build on it. And that's why they're pretty good, in terms of technology and engineering. So perhaps if we can, we have a group here which is working on that with some Maori scholars and Pacific scholars, looking at how we can extract some of those, indigenous science and innovation that we can use now and build upon that. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of that. So it needs a bit of research. So the idea of expanding your horizon and the idea of understanding some of the traditional means of innovation, which can be used now. It's something which I have been following in my research journey. The other motivating factor for me is connecting the kind of global and the local. Because I think some of us, especially the educated people, we have become so globalized, we forget about the fact that there's a root there somewhere at the local level. So at the moment, I'm involved in the project in the village. The footpath, buying everything and sending it to the village, and they do it. They send me photos, and they're doing a wall, the seafood footpath, and all those things. Because our village is on the hill, so without any government help, I told them, we don't have to rely on anyone. We can do it ourselves. Yes. You provide the labor. I give you I provide the all the other stuff that's needed, like the cement and all the stuff. And then at one level, I operate at the global level as well. I'm chair of the International Political Science Association Research Committee on Global Security, and I lead about 4 or 5 global research teams. One of that was the Global Ethnicity Research Team of more than 100, which produced the largest work on ethnicity ever produced in the world, 3 volumes, and about 2,048 pages altogether. And then, but then I connect a lot of that stuff with what's happening at a very localized level and within the region as well. So I think it's important to make those connections everywhere, to connect the dots from the very global and the local. There are a lot of things at the global level that you can, people at the local level can learn from, and vice versa. There are a lot of things at the local level which people up there can learn from. Also leading a major climate change project in the Pacific to do a climate assessment for 16 countries in the region. It's funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in New Zealand. We're doing it together with the USP. So there's a co-leader from there as well, Professor Elizabeth Holland. So the idea is to, for the first time, do a study of climate change which engages both indigenous knowledge, the knowledge of the local communities, and scientific knowledge at the global level. And often a lot of work done on climate change revolves around scientific knowledge at the other end of the spectrum, and then forgetting about local knowledge at the local level. So we put together quite a large team of researchers, the meteorologists, the oceanographers, and so forth, and then anthropologists, sociologists, and as well as indigenous knowledge makers, and how social science, humanities, the sciences, and indigenous knowledge can work together. So yeah, that's ongoing as well. And also I lead a team on COVID. We just had a book which came out. Well, it's coming out anytime now. Yeah, it's been published. So yeah, been pretty busy doing a lot of work. But then, of course, like I said, a lot of these are kind of driven by some of those things I said earlier. Yeah, and I think it's important to kind of make those connections all the time, especially for those who are the young scholars, the young students who are listening. And then I think one of the things is to set your bar high. Often we set our bar very low, and then the higher the bar, the better. And then, but not too high. Otherwise, if you don't achieve it, then it's going to be self-defeating, and you won't feel good. It can be detrimental to your mental health when you realize that you're aiming for something you can't achieve. So I think that's important, that you have to be realistic. That's why I said earlier, you have to be strategic in your choices. Make sure that your choices are realistic, that you have the mechanisms and the means by which you can achieve those things. Yeah. So yeah. So those are yeah, some of the things at this point. Yeah. So if you have any other questions, otherwise I'll keep talking forever.
Yes, Vinaka. I just want to bring it back to, when you were talking about, going to the museum, and, and you're looking at the canoe and the museums, they're looking at preserving the artifacts. You're absolutely right. It's got the intangible heritage, information that is associated with the physical artifact that you're looking at, which is what we need to be collecting and reviving and applying it and learning some of the innovative ideas from it. And one thing I want to add to it is that you are just confirming that our ancestors were scientists in their own right. Yeah, back in the day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm just writing an article at the moment it's kind of rebuttal to there's a big controversy here in New Zealand. 7 scientists and psychologists from University of Auckland wrote a letter to the Listener magazine in response to the move in New Zealand to change the curriculum so that indigenous Maori knowledge and Western scientific knowledge are equal in terms of their knowledge value. So they're arguing that no, indigenous knowledge is inferior, it's not as good as science. So the Royal Society of New Zealand has come out and criticized them. The university itself has done that, a lot of scholars. So one of those academics has lost his job. They all have very senior professors and heads of department. So yeah, so and then of course that leads to your question, because a lot of the indigenous knowledge actually is very scientific in their own ways. Like for instance, the navigational systems which they're using the stars, and they knew the movement of stars, and using the waves, and being able to design a boat which can cut through waves and sail thousands of miles as far as South America and bring back the kumala. So and the knowledge of seasons and the kinds of fish and plants at a particular time of the year. And the Maoris have their calendar, the lunar calendar, the Matariki, which is a class of stars. They come out every now and then. So they have, it's going to be a national holiday. So yeah, there's so much in terms of the scientific knowledge of the past. I mean, the way the word science has been defined is being defined in a very narrow way, particularly by European scientists to suit their cultural agenda, to suit their worldview, when in fact science is across all cultures. So when people talk about science, they talk about all the scientific method. They talk about things like observation and recording and experimentation, and being able to understand the how things work. When in fact our ancestors also did the same thing, observing. Instead of doing experiment in the laboratory for only 1 hour or 2 hours and finding out the result, the experimentation takes takes generation. You make adjustment to what you do, whether it's to do with styles of building houses or canoes, whatever. And it's something which is built into the culture.
The other thing I was going to ask you about as well, Professor Stephen, is to do with, with the interdisciplinary fields that you're working with. There's a lot of collaborations you're doing, within New Zealand, connecting with USP, and then also with on a global level. How do you negotiate, these collaborations, or in terms of your own, like, what's the secret in terms of how you are able to manage these different projects? Sometimes they're running simultaneously. So this is amazing on how you actually, doing things locally within New Zealand. You're helping the family in Kadavu, Naioti, and at the same time you are, operating on a global level.
Well, I mean, so being interdisciplinary is where things should be heading anyway, because knowledge itself. Because one of the I keep telling my students and other staff members, I wrote about it as well. One of the tragedies of modern education is the way in which we have created little boxes and put our thinking within those boxes. In Fiji, for instance, as soon as students go into secondary school, or even primary school, I think, they put them in streams. You go into the science stream, social science stream, the technical stream, the accounting stream, commerce stream, whatever. And then when you do that, you destroy their little mind, so their young minds forever at a very young age, because you start creating little boxes in their thinking, when in fact we should allow their thinking to grow and to connect. And then at universities, they do the same thing. They have specialization, physics, biology, sociology, economics, and history, anthropology, whatever it might be. And those boxes, those disciplinary boxes, they also do the same thing. And at the PhD level, when you try to get rid of those boxes. Sometimes it's quite difficult. And I normally tell my PhD students, okay, you come here with a box in your head. What you want to do here is to deboxify yourself, get rid of those boxes, because knowledge is not, the real world does not consist of boxes. It consists of the fluid synergy and dynamic interaction between culture, technology, science, biology, everything is fluid. Our indigenous knowledge, for instance, is the same. There were no boxes. Everything, the understanding of the stars, the sky and the sea and the trees were all connected. Nature was all connected. It was not in terms of biology here and physics here and chemistry here. They're all connected. And increasingly, universities and of course, global knowledge makers are beginning to move away from the narrow disciplinary focus into interdisciplinary focus. A lot of universities are doing that, so that in many universities now you can major in physics and biology, or chemistry and philosophy, or IT and sociology, for instance. And like in the United States, for instance, you have a liberal arts degree, where it's all open. You do anything from here and there. Unfortunately, our universities like USP is a worst case of little boxes. So when graduates come out, they have little boxes in their heads, which kind of destroy the sense of creative thinking, problem solving, critical assessment of things. And a lot of that is lost within the education system. Education system is supposed to enhance creativity, enlighten your thinking, but unfortunately, we have created an education system which destroys all those things and locks you into those little boxes. Yeah, so those are some of the challenges of modern education. And that's why interdisciplinary education, to go back, interdisciplinary studies is very, very important. Like climate change, for instance. Climate change is not just something to do with environment. It is to do with health. It is to do with politics. It has to do with culture. It has to do with economics. It has to do with land. COVID-19, the team which I lead for COVID-19 is interdisciplinary. You have sociology, you have medical doctors, there are two of them. There are sociologists and so forth, because COVID-19 is not just to do with health. It has to do with well-being, it has to do with poverty, it has to do with economics, it has to do with the environment as well, it has to do with psychology. So it's all interconnected. So we get rid of all those boxes. Unless you do that, you won't be able to understand the fuller extent of that particular issue. So it's not just for doctors to be doing it and to be leading the charge. In fact, what they should be doing in Fiji now is instead of just having medical people leading it, they should have an interdisciplinary team consisting of everybody, because it has to do with behavior, has to do with social organization. People are resisting to be vaccinated because of a number of reasons, and you have to understand why. So it's deep-rooted. Some of it's political and religious, something which is totally beyond the scope of your medical training. That's where social scientists come in handy. So that's why we have, that's why we need that kind of interdisciplinary decision-making in Fiji, whether it's to do with the economy, whether it's to do with civil service, and of course, COVID-19 is a classic example of where we need it. Yeah, so that's how really knowledge should be moving. We're really, I mean, the interdisciplinary studies is really just replicating the indigenous knowledge system of the past, and then reviving it in a particular way. Because what Western knowledge has done was to create the little boxes. And then now, even within the Western education system itself, many are talking about, let's get rid of these boxes. A lot of them are useless, and also they hinder and undermine our understanding of the world. The world is very complex. The world is changing all the time, and the world at the global, at the regional, national, at the local level intertwined, interrelated in very complex ways. And we have to understand those complexities by getting rid of those boxes. Because if you use a box and it's like holding a little box and try to understand, looking out and try to understand nature. So you only understand what's in the box. Yeah.
I remember Professor Ratuva being at the University of Auckland. There was something I was trying to do in terms of getting our students, our Pacific Island students, to bring in their heritage stories. Whether they are New Zealand born or they were born in the Pacific, whether Samoan, Tongan, Tokelau, Niuean, or Fijian, is to bring their heritage with them into their learning. Because I remember hearing a lot of the statistics with the Maoris and the Pacific Island students. They don't fare well at the university, but that was sort of like an area I was looking at, to see our own students, to bring their language, their culture, their whole being into their learning. If they're doing engineering, bring their Samoan, knowledge with them. If they're doing economics or accounting, which is kind of leading into exactly what you're doing. And I'm really happy that, that's the way you're going in terms of research. And for people, whoever that they are, wherever or whoever they are, where they start studying in universities, for them not to take away or leave their heritage at the gate of the university, and they walk in to study a new field of study, they go back home, and then they take their heritage with them. So I'm really happy to see that there has to be that combination of learning, but including their heritage with them. So for me, my next question is, as an advocate for Indigenous research and education, what would be your sort of advice to our young researchers, Fijians in particular, who are listening in tonight, in terms of encouraging them in whatever field of study they take, is to include this Indigenous knowledge and this amazing, vast of deep heritage that is part of us that, we were taught to forget or to dismiss, but now, yesterday's Talanoa with Pedinan is exactly what you're echoing today, Professor Stephen. What would be something you can encourage us with?
Thanks, Prof, for that. A very, very important question. Number of things. One is that we also need to be very, very careful with how we define, like I said earlier, strategic about how we define Indigenous knowledge, for instance, because sometimes when we are comfortable with particular aspects of our own culture, that is also can drag us down. And there are particular aspects of our culture which are able to make us adaptive. There are particular aspects of our culture which are innovative and enables us to open new windows to new things. So that's where being strategic about choices and self-analysis. What I normally do is kind of self-analyze. Okay, what sort of things do I take, and what sort of things, things which would enable me to go over the bar. And sometimes we might choose aspects of our own culture which get us below the bar. To put it very, very, very in a very harsh way. So that's why even our choice of what particular Indigenous knowledge and what particular culture, we ourselves, we talk about it as Fijians, as Tokay, or Sona Tovango, Sona Kango. So that's why it's important to have those kind of strategic choices. Now, the second thing is to do with once you choose some of those innovative aspects of our culture, which can help us, is how do you use it in what particular way? There are ethical considerations, there are moral considerations, because knowledge is not something which is technical, which is mechanical, which has no feeling. In fact, it's based on a particular cultural value system. And the way we use knowledge can lead to our own success. At the same time, it can also undermine the success of others. Like science, for instance, can be used for good things, like medicine, making medicine, and all those. At the same time, it can be used to kill people. So that's why it's important to be empathetic, sense of empathy towards other people, because simply having knowledge is not sufficient. You got to have, your research must make sure that it has some impact, some good impact on others, whether it's to do with poverty, whether it's to do with diseases, whether it's to do with making sure that you address their well-being. So it's important to look beyond just what you do in terms of your knowledge, but also what kind of impact, what kind of social impact, what kind of ethical impact does it have on others? And having a sense of empathy is very, very important. Often we have so-called smart people become arrogant and say, oh yes, I know better. I want to impose my will on others. And the academia is full of such people. I come across them every day because they compete all the time, especially now. What is happening in the academic world is it's a terrible reflection of the way in which knowledge has evolved, because knowledge has become a commodity to be sold and bought in the market. The term that we sociologists use is commodification of knowledge. So it's not knowledge for the purpose of enhancing understanding anymore. Even universities have become neoliberalized. Neoliberalism is a philosophy which talks about the fact that the market becomes supreme. There was a time when universities, for instance, was supposed to be where you develop knowledge, but now that's where you sell knowledge. Students are supposed to bring in money. So everything is driven by money. They become corporatized. That's one of the tragedies, one of the sad things about how education has evolved over the years. So, which means that it also impacts on the way students choose their courses as well. It becomes narrower and narrower, something to make them sellable in the market. And of course, that impacts on indigenous knowledge as well, because what has happened in the last few years is that knowledge systems have been stratified in the form of a pyramid. Some are ranked higher than others, and usually indigenous knowledge is seen as not commodifiable. You cannot buy and sell it in the market, so it's regarded as being right down there. So that's where, and then when there are reforms in universities in terms of cutting down on costs, some of the biggest victims are usually those in the area of humanities and indigenous knowledge, because of the way in which the university has become a marketplace where you buy and sell. And then academics, to be able to survive, you have to be able to generate money, either by bringing in students or bring in research money. Through projects and all those. So it has become so tough, particularly for indigenous knowledge, particularly for our indigenous students, having to be part of that highly, contentious area. So that's why, I've been helping a lot of the young scholars, young Fijian scholars in New Zealand, because they feel lost, because it's the big, European institutions, the universities, and their norms and their in the way they operate, the promotion system and all those things are geared towards particular dominant group. So they feel very small. They feel a sense of inferiority complex. So I've been spending a lot of my time trying to, mentor them and say, hang on, look, it's possible to go through these hurdles. And of course, I've been involved in some of the moves to try and make changes from within the educational system here. I helped to put together the Pacific Research Network in New Zealand to try and address some of these issues. Yeah, and
Ah.
also I also helped put together the Fijian Research Network here. So it's a way of helping the young scholars coming through, particularly when they feel small in this big world of competition. Yeah, it's very highly. I mean, academia is very, very competitive, very highly competitive. Yeah.
Yes, I think from all of us listening in tonight, we are just so grateful, with you sharing your words of wisdom with us. Lele usaranga vikandana sema chukumika vida na marami na mosin sa mamarau tuka na nonra na nomundra Maria vedna buka pula Vinaka rivangu tomaro te kira sarangana no mu was chuk mai kai ba ungit kenra sol tali bikenra dona lilo bo Vinaka valim. Yeah, Kai, you mentioned the Marsden Award earlier on, and I know you've had a couple of other awards. The recent one is the 2020, is it Medal Royal Society of New Zealand, Te Aparangi. Can you just tell us a little bit about this award, and how do you feel about receiving this award very recently?
Okay. Sorry. Well, it's every 2 years they award this the medal, they call it. It's the highest award for social science.
Wow.
In New Zealand, and all the time the winners have been Europeans, professors from various universities here. So it's awarded by the Royal Society of New Zealand. The Royal Society started off in Britain in the 1600s by the monarch. So it's like the academic body which awards all the top prizes in Britain, in New Zealand, in Australia as well. Yes. So well, it was just a matter of like I said, driven by some of those principles which I had in mind, which I talked about earlier. And so there was the first Pacific Islander to win that. Well, the first person of first brown person like me. Yeah. Yeah.
So no, that's just so wonderful. It just makes us when we saw you with the award, to us younger ones looking up at you, we realize, well, if Professor Sitiveni Ratuva can get that award, I can as well. So from all of us, Vinaka for opening that door and for empowering many of us to realize our own potential and the ability that we can be able to fulfill any dreams. If you look up the horizon and you keep looking at the horizon over another horizon, you have done just that for us. So
like when you growing up in the in the village in Kandavu, not in the Moshi. In the Moshi, you look around, it's just hills. In Kandavu, you wake up in the morning, look out, you see the horizon.
Yes.
Before you go to bed, you see the horizon.
Good.
So it's like it's all around you. Yeah. I mean, if you're in a boat from Kandavu to Suva, you look around all around you, you see it's 360 degrees. Yeah.
Wow.
So the horizon is actually round and you're the center of it. And people don't realize that we are the center of your circle. Yeah. And if you draw a circle, you become the center. So that's where I normally get my inspiration from. And then you in the middle, and then it's limitless in all directions.
Wow.
But I suppose only if you're from Kandavu. But if you're from Namosi, you look 360 degrees, you have hills and mountains and wild boars.
Mountains and rocks of gold.
Yes, Vinaka. I think according to Mr. Murindilo, he said all those mountains and hills, they have gold and copper inside.
Oh, yes.
So there you go.
Yeah, $1 billion there. Yeah.
So Kadavu has $1 million, Namosi has $1 billion. So there you go. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, Vinaka Valibukai. And one thing I just love what you said earlier, when it came to the Marsden Awards, how you were told, oh no, that award is not for us. And lo and behold, you applied, you got it, and then you did workshop for the others as well. They're just so brilliant. Yeah, just so very admirable, that way that we can be able to, for you to, just to kind of, how to say it? Yeah, just to break the ceiling, so to speak. And now you got the Marsden Award, and you also had a 2019 Research Award at University of Canterbury.
Yeah, I won the University Research Award. Again, it was always won by scientists and mathematicians. I was the very first social scientist to win it. And then also in 2018, I won a Fulbright fellowship. So I spent time in 3 universities in the United States. So yeah, I mean, it's something which is possible for anyone to do it.
Yes. I know it's 2 minutes to the hour, because I promised you that we'll work within the hour, so we'll do it the Kandavu way.
Yeah.
I give you the final 2 minutes.
Oh yes,
anything you want.
Yeah. Carry on.
Anything you want to say, or you want to say mbula or thank you to anybody, this is your time, Kai. Yeah.
And also one thing I forgot was that one of my inspiration is actually music. I'm also a musician. I have my keyboard there, microphone, and I do my kind of recording and I play, because music and what I've done in my center is that we integrate music and art together with academia, because research has found out that that music can stimulate your thinking. So a lot of students now, they listen to their favorite music before they go to the exam and all those. I remember when I was doing my PhD in Britain, that's what I used to do in the middle of the night, about 2 o'clock in the morning, when I feel sleepy, just turn around my keyboard, which is over here.
Yeah.
No, that used to be an earlier one. This is the latest one. And then start playing.
So that's an old model. This is a new model.
Yeah. My favorite music, of course, was the song was Liwa Tokalau. Once you play
so I was
a little bit of that,
is it possible if you can play it for us? Yeah. Carry on, Kai.
Maybe another day. Yeah.
Okay, another day. Kurilenga.
Yeah. Okay.
That is just amazing. Yeah. Carry on.
So and also do a bit of art. I was actually did a number of cartoons for a number of newspapers and magazines in Fiji in the early days. Yeah, I think my painting at the Lambert Hall is still there when I was a student at the stage. Yeah, it was the biggest work of postmodern art in the Pacific for a long time. I don't know whether a much bigger one has been done after that. Yeah, so it's getting cold and cold. I think snow is falling outside. That's why I'm all dressed up this way. Yeah.
Kai, I think for those of you who've been to the Maris Brothers High School Lambert Hall, that's exactly what Kai has said. He drew that. Is it like a mural, Kai? Yeah,
it's a mural. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a mural. So now you know that the artist is Professor Sitiveni Ratuva. Yes, from all of us, Kai, we just wanted to say Vinaka to you for taking the time away from your busy schedule. I know you have got another engagement to go to, but from all of us, there's lots of Kekandavus listing from the Middle East, from United Kingdom, America, Australia, New Zealand, and even back in Fiji, maybe some listing from Naioti, I don't know. But everyone just want to say Vinaka Vakalevu.
Iyo, musambulan nonda may kandabum nua veiasai vuravura mutuke, kuna walevu na waromai, kuna walevu na na pinawalebu teris na program rono Vinaka sa lebu nan rindui kai na snow sa lutunga mabiteli tumba sa pamode chukani mai New Zealandi gai dona sing gai sotal
Andon, Vinaka valeu
sa
sar
Vinaka.
Professor Sitiveni Ratuva, sa vamos chuka tololam sar valeu vei di mer ke tonangon. Vinaka valeu.
Sa pinawalebu teris pinawalebu tau gai loloma tuani na mosi.
Satu kung tiyang tao na ngona keli kena kopa, na bisurecha tu vei kumi murugela kobat.
Okay, Vinaka.
Vinaka valeu sar.
Sebenarnya walebu, Naka. Mau toka?
Naka,
Naka.
Naka. Isa. Vinaka valeu. Vikim ni na varro chuku mai. And the maro taksar valeu na don la sema mai o Professor Sitiveni Ratuva. Au kla ni kuaturan o soso. Kira nga ko ni ko me basang bulu kalimangan binitsi na dero vitala no yang ko sa sibita balilay na basang bulu kalimangan binitsi na no natali taka na no natala no weekend ni ko na kanong kumaro taka ni abandonia na nongo kerker me la ko mai ko na turang ni Naioti Yale mai Kadavu Vinaka valeu kai Professor Sitiveni Ratuva ko talaga lebu sar na rabu sa usawe nakabo Professor Sitiveni Ratuva lebu naka ko endo talaga na matay ni vei-univesiti me torombe ka vaka na tutuni me tegbu gas ni vuli mai na university ni ste doroboli le sarana sa tegbu bibata vuli tumai me adobana nona laki vai tebi chingo ko na University of Canterbury. Kaya sobi kemunio ni binakata mo ni bitar tarbikoya na buku ni bata tarumbe ka ni vuli ningai bangare ko nga na Google na mona liba se sobi kemuni beso ng tarum yang palet na vuli ningai bitar tar nga me biyaw au ningai bitar tarbikoya in University of Canterbury malo Gina Vinaka valeu another motivational Monday. I was so stoked to have him agree to my care, but it was through my husband, Mr. Vunindilo. Must be the Namosi Yale relationship, because they are Tabaivola na veiuqeti mai Namosi watake na koro wakturango Yale. Sa keretiki no Yale, vosotiao iyo. Ena koro ngao, tiki no Yale iyo. Lako na kere ang abandonia mai na turanga ngo iyo. Dapat ni Vinaka ni selito kana na ngona menda may bibitala no go bida na award de solibi ko ya na Masdan Award solibi ko ya ngon si chikino ko na University of Auckland sangay laksombo ko na University of Canterbury sangay solibuan na University of Canterbury Research Medal. O ko na director for the MacMillan Brown Center. Yo na tutu chukino ko baka me sociologist but go sa baka sultan kindotal na title mo na political sociologist na runo ndoluro sa bulu solibi ko na medal ka pamadal tak chiko ko solibi na Royal Society of New Zealand baka samta kaya na award solibi as a solisar mena chin kaono nan raw may na ngono sar ni may England. Era torto kami na babalangi sangay lako mo ko ini sila do kami matay ni turang ni biti may kasama mataltak juga ko iya dora kana no kumaraw ni solibi ko na ito dobia solitel nga bi ko na dobi ni Fulbright ko ba mataltak juga ko Fulbright Award and do solibi na lolom tekme na matintu o Amerika me ngai nding takira la ko bekan son university wataw na topic on ding takay sor la ko na museum sor la ko na tambana ta nga on ding taka mo la ko kino nang kay so mo keda bakan duwa na matintu Amerika dari na turangan go lebu na matin katumbay santo lava biket dari da ngoni sa chuktal ngondo ni songo ni ngoni toke me New Zealand me bukeira na ngoni era chuk me New Zealand me mereka kuni rando ridi resong sa chuk sarangan ngondo na tambanango me belitir sarangan ngoni toke kara vuli chuk New Zealand Ndora ka nung kutali taka na kaya pamadal taka cukup ni sember ni keruti ke bubitalan no tukun cungon loko me na loma ni 5 na baki mengo me sarna durumai na ngone ni biti mer sarna bibata bulida na vei-univesiti ini Selandia. Na ito ya sa doon ito buto sa bitaroko me na ngonongo kina 5 na baki sa katumai sa nayada so na bibisaw. Doon ka nung kumaruta ko kung turangan ko nung gas ni vuli and University mo Yokalandi mani vakabuna kina nung rawata na nung vuli o babi ni Vinaka na bagaliwan turangan ni Naioti ngo and ano na biba kang bauti biyaw ko rakin na mo bauti na nung vuli tiko talaga dokta seta matibi titulabu may bingarabi talaga kina bi koya me gabo na non lektor na no koroy and ngonongo biti talaga ngoni biti era vuli talaga na rukuna men University of Canterbury sa totokan din ni dagay ngola ni bangko ng University sa chikumiki ng dua baka nga vakatikenda nga nasulibi ka na yalon din ni dangola ni bangko ng na puno nakadaka sendo na University dari ni bangko sarabulubul ka nga sa nandor taman niya lili na rumikenda tu yala ko ba tu na pasababalangi na vikake ba yongo nagela ko ni bangko sa tumokay nakasar nga undonyo yang ngola na University mo kalan satu mikina na we kanggung go pa bini naksar valeu be Professor Sitiveni Ratuva ni bibu kina nongo vuli maro taksar ba krem tu me daw tungango se do viva ungets tunga biao na vengo na keden do bambula mai tukun biao terisi na no mchingo da kabango ngo au sanga do iyo sana pamuria me daw chingo sana pamuria chunga na kai endo bakasal te ke okina iyo klabi kenda kede so vi ke bunini vos chumingo dia na no mikoya dia na muningas ni vuli men University ni dewa di na saranga sanga ngol men University mi Okalandi ngonongo sati ko sarako me Canterbury may na taun yo Christchurch tati ko na University mi Canterbury iyo isa wa vini vinaksar vale bu dol bina tau seri mamboki ni korsaya vinak vale bu na sema chikumai merebu ni vaka Maria bedena buka revangu manako bakalibu na sema mai nikua au nitikina ni marotaka na vitala nongo vikenda na biwakani me kandavu wachulo sakachukaya tu vikemu en nambong ni lebu en nongo vaka Vinaka vevehia en non sulitu na nonangauna na turang ni Naioti o Professor Sitiveni Ratuva maybe bolongo ditungani bata-bataka menda soli vakasama membelata na ulutangan ni vuli so matanga nere simbera matanga ni da vakasam tikina vuli da vakasam tikina mananga na nonda lilo na ulutanga ya pamata da bia chila menda chila so nonda ribanjinjiki siya matal na vital no ki Professor Pedinaniavi da baungit saranga weekend may kandavu menda sa tegabu marroya katagu makina na nonda to tuk makau na nanda bi kor saranga roni katoni soni talanoa sa roni bolai saranga Tabaivola roni tambaki men rabante kini saranga na nanda yang ngoni na bi korni bulin rachume kandau roni rwili babalangi rwili talanga babici te bambau roni bolai saranga na nanda bosa saranga ni su rawa ya sa rusati kubuna na vitamani o kaleo pati Tabaivola pat ke Tabaivola na non rusati kubula na itala noa membaleti tanobu ke tau molau na rona tukuni mai ono pat ke nambukeliu ke sa rawi ke na vitamani ka menru Tabaivola so ni talo makawete sa rosranga weekenda menda di bolan rutu tal no mengaloa rutu tal no menakaseleka mai Yale mai Veiliutaki mai sanima mai ono mai yawe tabuki wat kena bukeliu iyo anta biba ungit saranga ndarin rabon da bola saranga no de tal no makawa na menra gai bola tamba gai sola tu bikin ranangon menra wili ke korni buli rawa saranga anta biba ungit saranga no bat saranga ni biba ungit sibanika weekend na kena marroy na nandito ko tumakaw na dari siya nga talaga may tambaki talaga Tabaivola iya sa chike saranga meri au sa lalom sara juga tubali bike muto ko pinakabali sara na musya mai da marotekina ni may total nando bulang ka Professor Sitiveni Ratuva ni may nanda bulang ni lebu wabi ni binakchuben at maram ni law binakabali bujina lebu sara juga na biyo kani may law dombulu binaka na nung maram na ita may lomay biti nita siri ke te levu Vinaka levu sara na vi toko ni chuko mai ni mataka e na to chunga na ni ro program baka biotini me wasinga ni soni tuk makau ke kandau ke vakau ni ngalala e na sika ni mataka ninga sia mamai ke ro na imbite ni na ken posta e na nungu ibata mo ninga baka rombi ke na soni talo na makau dala tukuni manda ni mataka sona itukuni makau minta rongo tu manda basi vikana nangoni roninda tukuni minta veiutai itu tache ke seranga meri au sa vamos a chukat vike mutoto doko na viwakani musema chumika nandi pano mai viti bulu Vinaka lis do rewa parong tal chunga mikar maramni na tumua rutu mai vadada chukana maramni na mosi Vinaka valeu Maria vedna buka babi ni Vinaka sarai tu valeu au sa vaka mode vike munda na kai sotel na sigani mataka naka valeu ni mode mata